and then Fraser and Damon make out. Like big time, first make out of the season. Hey everyone, welcome to Reality in Resin with that lady Heather. Today we're talking about Below Deck, season 12, episode 4. So far we've covered episode 1, 2, and 3. So if you want to go back in my channel and watch those, feel free to do so. And today we're talking about episode 4. I so far have 37 subscribers. No, 39 subscribers. So thanks to everybody who's subscribed so far. If you're a Below Deck fan or a reality TV fan, especially Bravo, I'm definitely going to be covering more than just Below Deck. I'm just getting warmed up, obviously, because I only have 39 subscribers. So you're watching right from the very beginning. If you're interested in any other shows on Bravo, please subscribe to my channel. If you know anybody, please tell them to subscribe to my channel. Hit that bell. If you like the video, it's awesome for me. If you want to leave a comment, I would really appreciate that. Plus, the whole point of this channel is for us to talk to each other about Bravo shows. If you leave a comment, I will comment back. Let's get into it. Below Deck, episode 4, season 12. This one I think is called Sausage Island or Island of Sausages, because we are still with the gay porno gas 5-day charter. This 5-day charter is going on and on, which seems like forever, but it's only 5 days. But I think everybody is getting sick of it, especially by the end. So where are we at? Bravo, we always do a little recap. Chef Lawrence is gone. Chef Anthony is on his own. He seems nervous, but he's better than he was last season. The kitchen seems relatively cleaner, so hopefully things will work out better. I think I know how to pronounce his name now. Caio is still scrambling, still seems overwhelmed. And Solene is still struggling. We know she's the worst, but she's really fun, so whatever. Day 2 of 5, here we go. Part of why it maybe seems so long is since I've been doing these recaps, I realize how often you have to really watch the show to do a recap when you're doing it like scene by scene. So I watch it and then I watch it again and take notes, and then I watch it again before I talk about it. So for me, this charter seems like it's gone on forever. But I think we all feel like that. So we just left off with Captain Kerry pulling Caio into the bridge to talk to him about his performance, or begin this episode with Caio talking to his deck crew and trying to shift the blame onto them, and basically saying that Captain Kerry called Caio into his office to talk about the deck team, but he doesn't even really word it like that. And Kyle says right away, he didn't ask for all of us to go talk to him on the bridge. It was just him. Kyle already knows that. Well, I think they all already know that there's cracks, but I think this is also a really good deck team, so they're kind of able to work with these cracks pretty solidly. And I think that's why Caio's been around as long as he has. So part of the conversation that Captain Kerry was having with Caio is like, are you up for it? And Caio tried to shift over the blame to asking the deck crew, are you guys up for it? Are you up for it? I don't think anybody's thinking that Caio is up for it, never mind. But the deck crew is totally up for it. Jess is definitely up for it, and Kyle and Damo seem awesome. So Solene, she's still struggling, but she's also really fun. And it turns out that Rainbow's starting to become a drag, because she's like having these panic attacks. Well, I guess so far she's only had one, but she's like super stressed out, and it's showing, and she's kind of being short with people, and she's a little bit condescending with Solene. I think Rainbow, you need to chill out, girl. That's my advice to you. So they flip to a scene where Rainbow's telling Solene again, and she's like, we've shown you 3 or 4 times where these things are. But she says it in that kind of way. So I don't know, I can see kind of both sides. It's very frustrating to have to tell somebody umpteen times to do the bare minimum. But also when you're in a place where you're telling somebody umpteen times to do the bare minimum, you're like frustrated and no fun to work with, because nobody wants to be frustrated. That's why it would be great if everybody just did their jobs. Because when one person isn't doing their job and somebody else is doing 3 times as much, it's hard to also be nice at the same time. So I kind of see where both of them are coming from. And really, where's Fraser? We haven't seen any of him kind of weighing in on this, and it's his department. But I will say Rainbow isn't really communicating any of this. All Solene is hearing so far is either frustration and condescension, or, I'm sorry for speaking to you this way, of big hugs. There's no just direct, this is what you need to improve on. You need to speak to people directly without frustration if you can. If you can. It's hard, but that's, your most effective way of telling people what to do, I would think. But what do I know? Carry on, Rainbow. You do you. The guests are kind of lounging around and everybody's cleaning, and that's what's going on. People are hanging out, having fun, or the guests are hanging out, having fun, and everybody's kind of cleaning. And it's sort of the time where it's okay to have fun while you're doing your job, but Rainbow's still sort of stressed. The other two girls are having a good time, though. Actually, Rainbow's having a good time, too. She's having a break. She calls her friend and talks about her panic attack. She talks about how she, always pushes things down and she works so hard. She just breathes through it. She thinks she should have therapy, but for the meantime, she just takes deep breaths and hopes to get through it. So I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to last, Rainbow. I think that you're in a particularly stressful situation right now, and just breathing through it without directly communicating with anybody what's going on, it might not be doing you any favors. So far, the only person who is privy to really what's going on is Damo, because he happens to be working the same shifts. So because she doesn't really communicate to Fraser, and she lied about her end time a few episodes ago. And even when she's communicating with Solene, she's not really telling her what to do. I mean, she is telling her, she's trying to teach her prioritization. I'm not sure it's being absorbed just yet, but we'll see what happens. Oh my gosh. So now the guests go kayaking at night, and it looks amazing. They have these kayaks that are all lit up, and it looks like the most beautiful thing. The ocean at nighttime is one of my favorite places to be. On my island, we get phosphorescence. So when you go swimming at night, all of the water kind of lights up and it's like sparkly. It's amazing, and it reminded me of that. So they're having a neon theme party. So everybody's all wearing neon, and then they're doing kind of this, the kayaks look glow in the dark. And because the filming and whatnot, you still need to have light. My preference at the ocean is for it to be completely pitch black, so all you see is the stars and sparkly water if you happen to be where I am. But the stars, when everything is dark, is like amazing. So, but because of production and whenever, they have it all lit up, and you still see darkness, and it does definitely give that magical feeling. And you can see the kayaks are also clear as well as lit up, so you can see all the fish swimming underneath, and it just looks magical. So they do that, and then they go into caves, which is also awesome. I would love to do this trip. I mean, they definitely show you something that's aspirational, inspirational, aspirational. I'm going to have to Google those definitions. English teachers, help me out. Inspiration versus aspiration. Inspire versus aspire. I guess that's the difference. They inspire me to create a beautiful table, but I aspire to go on that trip. There you go. English teachers, thanks for nothing. I figured it out. Anyway, so they go on this beautiful kayaking journey. We see sea turtles. Amazing. Then they come back for dinner. And when they come back for dinner, everything is like neon and penises. So there's like neon and penises everywhere. It looks very, I mean, I want to say 80s, but I don't know. It's just neon-y. Neon-y doesn't have to be the 80s, does it? Maybe it does. I don't know. But it's very neon-y. And one of the guest comments, it's like gay heaven. So they're super happy. The chef is nervous, but I think he's going to be doing okay. But then, of course, it's a sushi dinner that they decide to have, and the chef, Anthony, gives one of the guests with a seafood allergy prawns or shrimp and a sushi roll. And of course, that's a huge mistake. And normally on Below Deck is really like hit and miss on what they choose to blow up into a big deal and what they choose to just kind of mention and gloss over. So in my estimation, serving somebody with a shellfish allergy seafood is a really big deal. And they do say, to be fair, Chef Anthony does say it could kill somebody. He acknowledges his mistake. And maybe that's why they didn't blow it up into a bigger deal. Like Captain Kerry doesn't weigh in on it. And, normally that would happen, especially since he was fired the last time for a preference sheet mistake. And I think it was also an allergy. So there's reason to be nervous about what's going on with the chef. But he acknowledges his mistake and he says it's going to be the last mistake of the season. He's not going to make any more mistakes. And Fraser is a bit worried. And you can see the power dynamic kind of happening here. Fraser gives me the impression that he thinks because he vouched for the chef to come back, he somehow got some vested ownership in his performance, and he's gonna maybe start bossing him around. So we'll see how that pans out. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's going to be healthy for their friendship, especially given Chef Anthony is already thinking that Fraser got him fired last season. Then we flip to the deck crew, and we flip to the deck crew, and we see Caio and Jess talking about, things that need improving. She is trying to, bolster his ego a little bit and rev him up. He seems pretty down in the dumps. He seems like he really wants to improve. He just doesn't know how to improve or what to do because his organization really hasn't improved whatsoever. He keeps making the same mistakes and the frustration continues. But I think, again, people really like him, so they want him to succeed. I mean, sometimes Below Deck is like a whole cast of people, and it's very hard to find anybody you like. This season is a full cast, and it's hard to find anybody you don't like. I mean, for me personally, Solene would be the one that I like the least because I feel like I can't handle somebody who doesn't want to do their job and resorts to like this flirty kind of baby way of getting out of it. It just drives me crazy. So but she seems nice and I can see why other people like her and why she's fun and everything. So it's kind of, I don't know, it'll be a tough time when somebody does get fired because they're so nice. But also, we need somebody to bring some drama or else it's going to be boring. So they talk, and it seems like he's just in over his head. So we'll see what happens. So then the guests continue having dinner. After the one mistake with the shellfish allergy, there are no more mistakes. Everything seems to be going well for the remainder of the night. The guests go up to the hot tub to like hang out, and everybody else starts cleaning. And so we kind of flip between guests having fun in hot tub scenes and the girls cleaning up. And this is when Rainbow tells Solene or asks Solene, gives her direction on what she should be doing next. She asks her to clean the service area and she asks her to take the table decor away and put it all away. So Rainbow is downstairs in the crew area and Solene comes down after she's finished cleaning up some stuff upstairs and relays the message that she has cleaned the main bar area and the service area. And then Rainbow kind of cuts her off and starts hugging her and celebrating and like saying, "Oh my God, you cleaned, the bar area before I even asked you to. That's amazing." She should have waited because as soon as she goes upstairs, she sends Solene off to bed. "Good night, you're awesome." When she goes upstairs, she sees all of the decor everywhere. Nothing has been even touched, never mind put away. She didn't even put it away unneatly, which is kind of what we were all expecting. She didn't even do anything. But nobody goes back to her. Nobody goes back to her and says, "Dude, do your job. Put this stuff away." Like, it's really easy to just say that to people. It's not personal. And what becomes personal is when you start talking to people like with this condescending tone because you haven't told them what to do. So, but that's not happening here. Rainbow's just getting more and more upset. What are you chewing on? And when you eating that? Rainbow's just getting really upset. But and it's too late now. She's already sent her to bed. So she's gone to bed. She thinks she's done an amazing job, even though she didn't do half of what she was told to do, but she did another random thing that she wasn't really told to do. But yay, she thinks she's doing awesome. So no wonder she's getting frustrated with mixed messages. And now when Rainbow's walking around, she's getting more and more frustrated. And this is where her anger comes out. And I think that Rainbow she might think when she's raging by herself that other people can hear her and are watching because she tends to apologize for like lashing out when she doesn't actually lash out really. Like she might speak condescendingly and stuff, but she doesn't really lash out. And then she apologizes and it's like, it's just so confusing. Dasher, do you want to come see what we're doing up here? Hey guys, this is Dasher. He wanted to see you and say hi. He's biting things at the bottom of my chair and it's totally distracting me. So, here's Dasher. Where are we at, Dasher? Oh yeah, Rainbow's just getting more and more frustrated, and she wonders to herself if it would be better if Solene wasn't even there at all. Which maybe it would, but it would be a lot more fun if she was. At least that's what everything else is thinking. Say goodbye to Dasher. I'm gonna put him down now. Dasher, go play. Yeah, we'll see you later. Go play. Anyway, that's Dasher. So now it's the next morning, and Rainbow tells how frustrated she is or how hard she's working and stuff. And she says it in more of like, I'm so awesome. I work so hard. It's okay. She doesn't have to do anything. I'm here to do all the work, and she's here to have fun. That kind of thing. I don't know. She's a little bit all over the place, that Rainbow. She needs to get a grip, maybe. And just take a chill pill, maybe. Let Fraser in on some of what's going on. He needs to, weigh in on his own department. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so now it's time to go to the beach. So Chef Anthony and Fraser decide to go to the beach, which I think is probably the perfect crew members to go. Although Caio, I think, would have been fun at the beach too. And they get to the beach. They tell the guests they're allowed to be naked at the beach. So the guests get naked. There's lots of bum shots. There's regular people on the beach watching, a bunch of gay guys frolicking in the water, which seems really fun. And they're all wearing dominatrix style things, like they're naked and things like that. Beep, beep. They're all wearing beep beeps. I might edit this part out because I don't know what I'm allowed to say. So you're just gonna have to watch the episode and know what I'm talking about. They're all wearing rings. Leave it at that. I mean, people are watching because they're a spectacle and a fun crowd to watch. So then we flash back to the boat, and Captain Kerry and Barbara are talking. And one thing I think is so cool this season is you see the captain interacting more with the crew on a one-on-one, get to know each other basis rather than the captain just giving everybody crap for not doing their job. And I really love seeing that. You kind of get to know everybody a little bit better. Certainly Captain Sandy yelling at Hannah about stuff was very entertaining back in the day, but it's also really nice to just see friendships building and people being normal to each other and nice. Sometimes we watch these shows for people to be nice to each other too. So they get into kind of a deep conversation about their past and relationships and being cheated on, and Captain Kerry used it as an opportunity to change his life and lifestyle. So, props to him for doing that. That's awesome. And then they end up saying, how much they both enjoyed the chat, and we carry on. So then we flip to Fraser and Damo talking about Caio, and Damo's expressing his concerns a little bit about how the breaks and disorganization, but nobody's really saying anything too heavy. They're just kind of the cracks are starting to show. And then Caio brings the guests back without telling anybody. As far as we can tell, communication is his biggest mistake. He seems to not be telling anybody when the guests are doing anything. He just sort of seems to be, going with the flow in every way that you can go with the flow. The guests, nobody knows when the guests are coming and going. Nobody knows when to have their breaks. Nobody knows when to eat. He's just kind of thinking everybody is also living in his head. I don't know what happened to that checklist thing that he was advised to do. He was advised to have a checklist. So far, we haven't seen anything. Even the advice that he's been given, he's not really taking. So I think this is more like foreshadowing to us saying goodbye to Caio. I still think that he is my next to get fired. I hope he doesn't, but also I kind of hope he does. He's also boring. He's not bringing anything fun to the table either. He seems like a nice enough guy, but I want somebody more entertaining. If you're not doing your job, you at least have to be entertaining like Solene. We could all learn a lesson from Solene, right? So then we move to Rainbow and Solene again, and Barbara, and they're doing the cabins, and Rainbow is getting more and more frustrated, and Barbara is talking about, we see her and Solene having fun together. They're putting on ski masks. They're talking about cock rings. They're just kind of doing their jobs while having fun, and Rainbow is getting really intense and she's kind of ordering Solene around, which, there's one thing between saying, not saying please and thank you. There's another thing between like bossy and ordering people around. And I get when you're getting frustrated with somebody that you tend to lean into bossing somebody around, but it doesn't do you any favors because they build resentment and they're not going to do what you're telling them to do if you're bossing them around. Unless they're maybe scared of you, but she doesn't have any power. She doesn't even like she's just the second stew. She's not Fraser. She needs to be saying some of this stuff again to Fraser so he can deal with it. It's his job, it's his department. So he should know. Plus, I think it would be received better. Plus, he's had more management experience. That's why he's in the position he's in. So he should be coaching and guiding Rainbow on how to deal with this kind of situation. So presumably when she becomes a chief stew, she'll be able to handle it better. But without communicating any of this to anybody, Rainbow, you're kind of doing a crappy job, even though you're working so hard. So that's not good. That's why she's my dark horse to get fired. If you're going to have a dark horse, it's going to be a Rainbow. And we flip to Barbara, and Barbara's saying that Rainbow just isn't her vibe, which I totally get because Rainbow's like becoming not fun. My very favorite part of the scene or this episode is probably when Rainbow calls Solene on the radio and calls her Celeste. I knew I wasn't the only one. I knew I wasn't the only one. I'm so sorry to be saying your name wrong all the time, and I know I should learn, but I knew I wasn't the only one. The editors, you're hilarious. I don't think anybody pointed it out except the editors, and they pointed Celeste, not Solene, or Solene, not Celeste. So that's my favorite part of the whole episode because I can relate to it so much. I've been butchering these poor people's names. It's terrible. I'm working on it though. I'll continue to work on it. Okay, so then we see this is where Rainbow apologizes to Solene for I have no idea why. I think she didn't let her clean up the pantry before her break. She didn't let her finish cleaning the pantry, so she like freaked out a little bit. But she's trying to prioritize everything. So the whole point of not cleaning up the pantry or dropping everything to go clean up cabins was because, if the guests come back, who cares if the service station is clean? We can do that while the guests are here. But their cabins need to be clean because they're going to come back and want to be in their cabins right away because they're going to have to change and whatnot. So she's trying to teach her prioritization. Then it's time for her to go on break. And instead of going on break, she wants to finish cleaning the server station, which again is like not the priority. You need to go on break. So when the guests come back, everybody has had their breaks and is ready to serve them. Again, the service station can wait, but she just doesn't want it. Like, instead, she throws it back on Rainbow and calls her crazy and you're cuckoo and walks away. And then Rainbow wants to like have a freak out on Jess. Again, Rainbow, you need to direct this to either Fraser or Solene. Telling Jess isn't doing anything. And Jess and Barbara just kind of conclude with you have to treat her like a little kid, which is very frustrating and not the answer. You need to tell Fraser so Fraser can do his job and manage his department. But so far that hasn't happened yet. So Solene, even though you're my next to be fired, I don't think you're getting fired anytime soon. We'll see. Episode 4. Let's see. Do you think she'll be fired by episode 6? I don't think so. I think we're looking at episode 7 or 8 for Solene to get fired. I think we're looking at episode 5 for Caio to get fired. Those are my predictions. Dark Horse, Rainbow, or Solene. I think they're going to get one of them will be fired. And I think it'll be like episode 7 or 8-ish when it happens. We'll see. They keep doing flashes to the crew talking about what kind of tip they're going to get and how they expect it to be. This time they actually name it. It's for 5 days. So they're expecting like $40,000 in a tip. Just wait. These poor people. They work so hard and they're so tired. And we flip to like, anyway, I'm jumping ahead. We flip to a montage of them being so tired. And it's funny. We're not there yet. So hold on. No jumping ahead. Guests come back from the naked beach. That's where we're at. And then there's no warning again. Caio, get it together, buddy. You have to tell people when these people are coming. They need to pour the champagne into the glasses to greet them at the dock. And people need to, like, I don't know, they need to know. It's like the only thing that is actually happening on this boat is the guests. So where they're at and what they're doing is job number one, and safety. You know, weather monitoring and guest monitoring is like your number one job, dude. Get it together. But so far, no, not getting it together. And you can see Captain Kerry is getting like frustrated and pissed off. And he keeps saying the same thing. And he actually says, I'm getting frustrated and pissed off. So no surprises. At least Captain Kerry is communicating with his team. He's so far pulled them in to have a conversation. Now he's actively helping him out. In fact, now he goes back into the boat to go get the rest of the crew who's still at the beach while Caio, I don't know what, that goes on break or something. I have no idea. They don't really say, but it's, I guess, so he can get his act together with all of his crew on deck. So Captain Kerry is at least communicating and he's giving him tools to try. And so far it's falling on deaf ears, which I think won't last long. That's why my prediction again, next episode. So Captain Kerry heads back to pick up the boys and they all seem to be having fun. And it's a fun, like, ride back to the boat, whatever. When Fraser comes back on the boat, him and Rainbow have a conversation about how everything went, which you think would be a perfect opportunity for Rainbow to actually say how everything went. Instead, she says she had one frustrating moment with Solene about breaks and really minimized it, and then just carried on to tell Fraser about how everything else was clean and done and organized. But you're not doing yourself any favors, Rainbow. Okay, then we flip ahead to dinner, and it's an S&M themed dinner. This is when they have that weird montage of like Chef Anthony. I don't know. I thought this was weird. This seems to be part of the new way they're editing things. Maybe it's a new production crew. I have no idea. Or production team. You do like there's a whole Chef Anthony montage of him basically kind of having a panic attack, but not really. And then they flip out of it and he's not having a panic attack and everything's fine. I think it's their way of building tension, but it came across really weird to me. What did you guys think? Did you think that whole Chef Anthony thing was like a weird buildup for nothing? And it kind of came out of nowhere. It looked like when they framed together when people are about to go to the hospital or something. And then it was a big dud at the end. Nothing happened. Chef Anthony is cooking and really hoping for no F ups this time. And none happen. He does fine with dinner. The dinner goes really well. We flip to Captain Kerry and Kyle checking in with one another. Captain Kerry talks about, is Kyle happy to be back on the boat? And Kyle is super happy to be back on the boat. They talk about Caio. Kyle, says the same thing everybody else has been saying, but again, he doesn't throw him under the bus very hard at all. You can tell this crew really likes one another, but he does say that, he's got some kinks to work out. It's an S&M night, so they're putting on all of their S&M outfits and whatnot. It's really like, it's such a fun night. Fraser and Anthony seem to be having fun together, which is so nice. It's nice to see them being friends. I have a feeling we're going to see them get into big fights, so it's kind of nice to see them being friends right now. I like when they get along. They're fun together. Fraser whips Anthony, and Anthony says, "Ooh la la," and that's the fun part. Everybody seems happy. They have a really good dinner. No mistakes happen. Everybody goes to bed. Rainbow, it's time for you to clean up. She cleans up a little bit. She goes to bed. Now it's the next morning. The next morning, day 4. It's only day 4. They have another whole day to go. This is the longest charter in the history of time. Everybody thinks it's long. You think it's long. I think it's long. They think it's long. I don't think the guests think it's long. At least they don't tip like they think it's long. But I'm jumping ahead. So even the editing team thinks it's long because this day we just speed through everything. It's just basically montages. I will say during this montage of like everybody just having fun and everybody being tired, my two favorite parts were the like Brady Bunch squares of everybody saying how tired they are, and also the themed dinner of Adam and Steve. There was like this beautiful garden table. It looked awesome. It was so pretty. It was way prettier than just neon being thrown up everywhere, in my humble opinion. That's my preference. So anyway, we speed through this day. I guess nothing really happens dramatically because we don't really talk about anything. Everybody's tired. Then it's the next morning. That day's over, quick like a bunny. Next morning, it's the last day of charter. We finally say goodbye to these guests. I mean, they were fun and they were awesome and nice. They tipped like crap, but whatever. They're gone now. And honestly, let's bring on some new people. This was too long. But I think if you are going to have a 5 day charter, these were kind of the guests. I would prefer a 5 day charter with like a crossover season. Let's get some housewives on this below deck and then do a 5 day charter, but not Jill. I think that's why actually Chef Anthony got fired last season after like having to deal with Jill Zarin from Real Housewives of New York. Please, Bravo, don't put Jill Zarin on our screens. I know she's fun, but like she was horrible. I don't want to see her being mean to service people or people in the service industry. I don't really want to see her being mean to anybody, but at least being mean to like housewives that are in the same power level of you, I can take, but not service people. I'm not here for it. So, but let's have some housewives. Let's have some housewives that are going to be nice and have fun and party and be like mean to each other. And I think there is a crossover episode coming or a crossover season or something. I've heard rumblings of crossovers with Below Deck and Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, back to Below Deck. These guests, good riddance, go by, tip better. When you see the episode, hopefully you'll feel like, oh my God, why didn't we tip better? They all say goodbye. It's the next day, the guests leave. Solene and Caio have a conversation and make a date for drinks. There's continuous flirting. I don't know if I've mentioned it, but there's been like flirting throughout since really episode 1 between Damon and Fraser. It's low key, but they keep like flashing to it every now and then. So that moment happens again. And it's definitely a prelude to something coming soon, but I don't want to jump too far ahead. When the guests leave, they do say that everything was awesome. They say thank you, and then they give a little baby tiny envelope over. And actually, when I saw the envelope, I was thinking, I hope it's just filled with like $100 bills, high denomination bills. But no, apparently they left a lousy tip. So Captain Kerry calls all the crew up to have a crew tip meeting and announces how bad the tip is. When I watched it the first time, I totally thought he was just messing with the crew. I thought it was like a huge tip and he was just like screwing with them. But no, he wasn't screwing with them. I don't really know how you deliver that message without it sounding like you're screwing with them. Turned out to be $19,000 for 5 days, which equates to, what did I say? I can't. $19,000 for 5 days, which equates to 1,500 each. So then he makes up for it by saying they're going to have a fun day off, which thank goodness, because we need more some time out time. The other thing about having a 5 day charter is you don't get as many times of them going out, and we're a lot here for them going out. So finally, we get them to go out. So it's time to go out. Yay, time to party. They go to a really cool island, it seems, and it's the French island. So it's funny when Rainbow decides that she's going to try ordering, and she orders in Spanish, and everybody points it out, and they laugh, and it's fun, whatever. Everybody seems to really be getting along. In particular, Kyle and Solene seem to be getting along well. Rainbow and Damon seem to be getting along well. Damon and Fraser seem to be getting along well. And that's who they're focused on so far. So after they party and hang out, everybody comes back to the boat. And then they go in the hot tub, and then Fraser and Damon make out. Like big time, first make out of the season. Fraser and Damon. And we already talked about Fraser already talked about his boyfriend not giving him permission. I guess he's got a boyfriend who's long distance and they don't see each other very often, and there is no permission to make out with anybody else. But Fraser goes ahead and does it anyway. So we leave wondering whether that will be okay with Fraser's boyfriend or not, but also we want this to happen because we like Damon and he's just wanting to have fun, and he goes into like his explanation of how his sexuality, and he's into women primarily, but he also doesn't mind like making out with guys every now and then. I bet we're going to see him and Kyle make out at some point because they also have a vibe, but it's more of like a Ruby vibe. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I predict that though. And then we talk about Kyle and Solene. They exchange a few kisses and they're fun and flirty. And Kyle we flash to Kyle and he says that he falls hard and, doesn't take him long to fall. And then we flash to Solene and she says that she's a little bit worried because dudes fall for her really hard all the time. And she's not really interested in that. She's not looking for a relationship for now. She just wants to enjoy the making out in the hot tub. So we'll see what happens. And that's kind of where the episode ends, you guys. Thanks for watching along with me. Below Deck episode 4, season 12. Please go to my channel, like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Comment. Please comment. Comment, I think, does something real good. Anyway, thanks for watching, you guys. We'll hang out soon. Thanks for watching, you guys. Hey, Herbie, get down. Get down. Barking. Stop barking, you dogs. Okay, get down. That's the end. Below Deck, that's Reality in Resin with that lady Heather. And thank you so much for subscribing. Share, comment, do the YouTube thing.